Okay, can everyone hear me? If you could just unmute yourself or place it in the chat. Yes, I can hear you. Yes, awesome, good. Thank you. Let me share my screen. Thanks for bearing with me through technical issues here today. All right, I think we are ready to get started. Thank you. Give me a thumbs up if you can see the presentation, or type yes in the chat box. I just want to make sure we're all set. Perfect, perfect. Okay, whew, what a way to pivot today. So thank you for joining today's session on work-life integration. My name is Tamika Clark, and I'm so glad that you're here with me today. We're going to talk about managing personal and professional priorities. Again, my name is Tamika Clark. I am one of the career specialists with the Career Services Department at Wake Tech. So we're going to dive into work life. It's a familiar term. I'm sure we've heard it time and time again. And we're going to discuss how it affects the way we manage our personal and professional priorities. So check out this comic. It, seems to be the perfect illustration of what's funny and what's not funny about work life. It's literally an oxymoron. Like, seriously, funny is an oxymoron. How do you have two conflicting things, howbeit in the same space? And so, in reviewing this comic, like I said, I thought it was like the perfect illustration of the contradictions sometimes we have with work and life and making those two happen together. And so, look at what Dagbert is saying about this work life seminar. First, review this list of your priorities, and you can see everything just lines up with what we normally face, right? Family, job, exercise, must do, medical. But you have time for three of these things, and working holidays or two. Now you get to choose the third one. How do you pick what that priority will be? And so sometimes navigating these priorities can really be overwhelming. This topic really hits home for me. Just a little bit about myself. I manage all of these things, as I'm sure we all do. We have so many roles to play on any given day. Um, I'm juggling multiple roles, and one day in particular hit really hard for me when my boys were toddlers. And after dropping them off at daycare, I got on the Beltline as I usually do, and headed out to work. I was exhausted. I turned on the radio to listen to one of the morning shows, and the next thing that I remember is waking up to smoke and sirens. I totaled my car on the Beltline. I fell asleep. And that was a wake up call for me. You can see, the many roles being a boss, a chauffeur, a mom, a wife. Again, sometimes that can be really overwhelming. Sometimes you're a therapist. Most days I'm the chef and organizer. Sometimes I have to play doctor and be or the nurse at times. So it can be really overwhelming at times to manage all of that. And as I had my wake up call that day, I hope that it would not be the same for you, but that we will find the time today to really place things in perspective and understanding, what's important. And that brings us to today's workshop. So this is how much work-life balance matters. When we look at the number of workers within the US that indicate that work life is important, we see that's roughly 75% that say, yes, this is an important aspect of life. And when you look at working parents, the significance is there as well. It actually ranked over salary. So even though you may not be a parent, maybe you're a caregiver for aging parents or a caregiver of some sort. And when you weigh all of these factors, you can see that having balance in your life is extremely important. It is definitely ranking within the top 5 of things that are extremely important in our lives. And so when we look at, what really matters, what does work life mean to you? Feel free to unmute yourself or to place in the chat, how do you define these areas of your life? When you look at work, what's your definition of work? Place that in the chat. What does that look like for you? And again, feel free to unmute yourself if you choose to share, how do you define work? Is it sometimes work, life for me seems like work when I'm managing all these aspects of my life. So whether it's your career, whether it's school, managing professional development, that can be the defining factor of what's considered work for you. And then the same thing for life. How do you define life? What's really important for you? Thank you. I see someone has indicated lots of responsibilities to further develop my life goals. Yes, it can be a major weight at times. And then when we look at life, how do we define life? What is the definition of life or living to you? What encompasses that area of life? You can see some examples here on the screen, relationships, well-being, community and connections. How would you define life? And so as we're going through, we want you to really think about these areas and how we bring these into focus and really navigate priorities that lie in between. So we're going to redefine the work-life flow. When we look at the traditional definition for work-life balance, it kind of denotes that you're giving 50% to one side and 50% to another, 50% to life, 50% to work. But that's really not realistic because, that idea of balance, 50% on one side and 50% on the other, implies that satisfaction will come from equal distribution in both areas. And I don't know about you, but work deadlines and family emergencies in my life, they don't occur in balance. So take a look at the right side of the screen, and we want to talk about how do we integrate these various areas of our lives, these various parts of our lives that create who we are. And so when we think about, work-life integration, how can we prioritize, integrating the various parts of our identity, our career, our well-being, community, family, and home life? How do we bring that all together? And so it makes me, really look at work-life integration like a patchwork quilt. It's unique to the designer, and you are the designer of that patchwork quilt. You are the master of creating what compartments fit into or blend into each fabric piece that's woven into what we call life, right? So as the designer, I want you to think about, it's how we settle upon the life that we choose. We choose, what the expectation is and not what others feel the expectation should be for us. Because when we allow others to choose, then we only become the owner of the quilt. We're no longer the designer. And we want to definitely just make sure that we are players in this game and not just pawns moving back and forth. Be the designer, integrate the various aspects of your life and your identity to create a mastery that works for you. So before we jump into this a little deeper, let's analyze what are some things that motivate you. Let's take a minute to really look at elements that motivate us to design our lives, our quilts, if you will. And so for personal and professional success, it's important that we know what really motivates us, not relying on external factors, but what's really at the core. You know, by default, we all want to be free. We all want to have autonomy. We all want to be architects of our own lives and be able to self-direct our destinies based upon what we have determined will be our purpose. So we need to give ourselves and others flexibility to work within that framework. Choose the autonomy to direct your own life as you desire. And when you are free and step outside those constructs, you develop a blend that works for yourself. And that blend then allows you to move into a place of mastery, not mastery in the perspective of perfection, but progress. We then begin to focus on progress, and it may take some trial and error and persistence, because as you're learning through various experiences, you're learning what blend and what integration process really works for you. And again, it's not about perfection, it's about moving forward in progress. And so my flow will not look like your flow, and your flow will not look like the other person's flow that's sitting in today's session, but it becomes more about learning and learning what works for you, how to effectively incorporate those various aspects of your identity to create a flow that really works for you in the various elements of your life. And then again, it becomes more about that learning process and less about performing and going through the day to day mundane routine of things. You don't want to go through the motions. When we are clear on our purpose, something that we've defined, that we're targeting for and we're shooting for, that's much bigger than ourselves, then it becomes this powerful source of renewable motivation. And so we want you to think about, you know, what really matters to you? What motivates you? What motivates you to work freely to master your own flow that guides you towards the purpose that you set for yourself? And so with that, it becomes a lot about prioritizing, you know, what works for you. And it's based on the factors that are important for you, less about preconceived notions and perfectionism, but you're being true to what you need at that time. You're being true to what really matters to you. It's not perfect, but you're moving in what's realistic for your life. And so, you know, I found that what is really useful and helpful in just kind of putting the busyness of life into perspective is the Eisenhower matrix. This has worked well because it allows you to really kind of compartmentalize things and place or categorize things according to what's urgent, things that you may have to do now, that are important, that you need to work on immediately. It allows you to compartmentalize those tasks or items in life that are important, but maybe they're not urgent. And so you work to determine where that will fit into your schedule at a later time. There are some things that you can delegate. They are possibly urgent, but not important. And those are things that, you know, maybe need to be done quickly, but they don't necessarily need to be done by you. And then there's just some things that really can really suck our time away because they're not urgent, they're not important, and they can really be eliminated entirely. So think about the activities that you have set for your day to day. And, let's look closely at the first quadrant. This is the do quadrant. These are tasks, again, that are very important and they just need to be done on the same day. Some of these tasks could be crises. Some of these tasks or some of the things that fall in this quadrant could be deadlines. It could be urgent problems. And so getting these things done and taking care of them, getting them off your plate. I don't know about you. It does provide a source of, satisfaction, or I feel grateful to be able to mark them off my list. And we want to make sure that we don't spend a lot of time in this particular quadrant, jumping from one situation to the next, fooling ourselves and thinking that we're really getting it done if we feel like we're on a hamster wheel. So be strategic about what goes in this box, and really, take the time to write out, what's urgent, what's important, what do you need to take care of immediately, so that it gives you the freedom to move on to other areas of your life. And that brings us to the second quadrant, the decide quadrant. So these are things that are important, but they're not urgent. It helps you to plan for the future when we place things that are important, but of less urgency in this box. So individuals who efficiently manage their time, they leave less room for unplanned things, and they try to make the most of what goes in this particular quadrant, in quadrant 2. So reducing stress by, terminating the urgent and important to do things, again, leaves more time for you to plan for the future and plan forward and place things in quadrant 2. So our natural tendency is to deal with, urgent things by delaying them, but really take the time to decide the importance of the matters that you place in this box. And so that means procrastination cannot be your friend. You will have to definitely decide quickly what needs to be taken care of, matter of factly, and then what needs to go into this second quadrant. And this will require that you organize and plan your task. And we'll get into that as you will develop, a daily activities or a daily to-do list. Now let's move on to quadrant number 3. Quadrant number 3 is not important, but again, urgent. And these are areas where you can create a win-win for yourself. Tasks in this quadrant are perfect when you free yourself to entrust someone else with these responsibilities, and you empower others to support you with these activities that you place in quadrant 3. Delegating these activities, they not only free up your time, but again, you empower other individuals to become part of your support system when you actively place things in the delegate quadrant. And so again, you want to create a win-win scenario for yourself. They're getting done, but you're not necessarily the one that's expending all of the energy to get these items done. So take full advantage of the delegate quadrant. I have learned that as my boys have gotten older, there were a lot of things that I had to do for them when they were toddlers, but now they are teenagers and well-capable young individuals that can support the functions of the household. So there are a lot of things that go in this delegate box that they help with, so that, again, there are things that need to be done, but I don't necessarily have to do them, but I empower them as part of my support system to contribute effectively to the team. And so that's what we do as part of our squad. And I would, encourage you to do the same as we get to the next part of, just kind of looking at your day, determine what can go in this box, because again, it'll allow you to free yourself and free up energy that you can use in other areas of your life. And then the last quadrant that we'll talk about is the delete quadrant. And so these are things that are not important. They are not urgent. In fact, if we are to be honest with ourselves, it's probably a lot of time wasting activities that kind of fall in this delete, or should fall in this delete quadrant. Um, there are things that we discover could be bad habits. And again, they're just time wasters, and they are sucking the productivity, if you will, out of our lives. So think about items again that are not urgent, not important, and you can just totally do without them. So we are in a very connected society, and technology is a great thing. Social media is a great thing, but the endless mindless strolling through Instagram or TikTok, or I love YouTube. YouTube is my jam. That is my thing. I will get on TikTok and excuse me, on YouTube and scroll and scroll and scroll away. And before I know it, I'm like, oh my goodness, where has the day gone? And I've watched, I can't even count how many YouTube videos. So for me, that would end up in the delete quadrant, because it's not something that I need as part of my job. I'm not doing research with these YouTube videos. It's not even something that I am using to better myself towards my purpose or my personal or professional goals. It's just a time waster. I'm just scrolling through YouTube and killing time. So go through your day, think about the things that could potentially end up in this delete quadrant that you can totally eliminate and save time or use that time in other areas of your life. So now it is your turn. Since I've had to pivot, and I do not have the PDF with me that I can upload into the chat session, I want you to just grab a sheet of paper, or grab your phone or whatever device that you have, and list some projects or some activities that you're working on, or just run down a quick list of things that you've done for the day, or are going to do before the day progresses. Just go ahead and write down that to-do list. Go ahead and take a couple of minutes and jot that down. I'm interested to see what's on these lists, if you're willing to share. How are those lists coming along?
All right. Sorry, this is Reggie. It's coming. What I'm having a hard time, I guess, deciding is between, I guess, the decide and delegate aspect, because all of it seems important and all of it seems like it needs to be done, but I have a hard time on which, I guess, to delegate it.
Yeah, yeah, I totally get that. Totally get that. So I have a couple of questions that you can ask yourself to maybe help clarify how to categorize that. But let's see, just off instinct, just jot it in the box where you think that it would go in the do,
Okay.
if it's urgent, or if it goes into the decide quadrant. How's everyone else doing? Coming along well with those lists? So now that you have your list, go ahead and transfer those items, those activities into the matrix. I wonder if you're surprised to see what ends up in that delete quadrant. And sometimes those things are not necessarily you wasting your time, as I have the mindless YouTube scrolling, but sometimes it is allowing others to waste your time. And so that may mean not just saying no to yourself, but also saying no to others. So what's ending up in that delete quadrant? Whatever you determine should go in the delegate quadrant. Have you figured out or given thought to who could do these tasks for you? And then thinking about, okay, what can you schedule for another time? How will I decide or delay this activity for another time? And then there are just some things that you got to do now. There are deadlines to meet, and maybe there are emergencies that have popped up. So I think I've given a good bit of time for you to kind of jot some things down. Who would like to share, based upon the list that you've created, what you have found to be most enlightening about the activities that you've placed in any of these quadrants? And feel free to unmute yourself, as Reginald did, or you can place it in the chat. Were there any surprises?
Well, like I said, at least a surprise for myself is on paper. It looks like I know what I'm supposed to do, what I'm not supposed to do. But it looks like I put everything in its perfect spot. But when it comes time to doing it, that's when I just
Ah,
slip up.
yes. Yeah, there's some execution involved. Absolutely. You got to just do it. Got to do it. And maybe you place execution in that do quadrant to keep yourself on task, Reginald. So there were no,
Right, right. I'll be double doing it. Right.
yeah. So um, no surprises for you. Everything just seemed to kind of fall in place.
Well, of the items that I guess I chose, like say for example, you brought up a really, really, really good point. Whereas, like I have kids of my own, I have two daughters, and so when they come to me with, daddy this, daddy that, all of it in my head is important because they're saying it. But when I go back to sit down, it's like, what in the world you just asked me that for? I feel inside of myself, it's like, what, that wasn't nothing serious. You just wanted some time. Let me do this and then come give you some time. But as
Right.
far as that, I have a hard time, like like I guess putting that hard note to my kids.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's power in saying no, but there is power in also saying maybe, or maybe not now, or maybe later. So it's important, definitely, but it's not urgent. So that's where those items go potentially in the
That makes
decide
sense.
box, that, it's important to you. Absolutely spending time with family, but maybe not today, maybe not this week. Maybe that happens next week. when your schedule has freed up a little bit more. So you decide when to schedule to make that happen. And maybe it is saying no, or it could just be a matter of saying not now. Does that help?
No, no, that dramatically does because it makes sense because the idea of just like pushing it off or just saying no kind of creates anxiety on both ends. One, what I got to get done, and two, my kids' happiness. Not when it comes to like, discipline or anything like that. It's just more or less. It's I don't know. Sometimes you can just see when the kids just want some attention. So I guess it's good to plan it. That's probably what I
Abs-
need to pay attention to.
Absolutely. Like I said, it doesn't mean that it's not important, but maybe it happens at a later time. I see there's some information that's come through the chat. Oh, Vita, think of delegate as anything that does not have to be done specifically by you. And she gives an example. So if you have a family, could someone else do the dishes, clean up around the house? Professionally, is there a project that someone could do a piece of it to help you so that you move forward? And then think of decide as a defer it category. So you're just delaying it or deferring it to another time. You might not want to make the decision right now, but schedule it for later. Not meant to be used as procrastination. Nope, it's not meant to be used as a procrastination category. So excellent advice, Lavita. Thank you so much for sharing. So if you still are like, I just don't know how to categorize this, I don't know if it needs to go into the do category or decide, or if I'm going to delegate, then consider these two questions. Ask yourself, what am I working towards? And what are the core values that drive my life? So in my experience, asking these two questions of myself tends to help me clarify how this whole process works, or how I can compartmentalize what needs to be done. It's urgent, needs to be taken care of now, or what I can defer or make the decision to schedule for a later time, or if someone else can do it for me, depending on what I'm working towards. And so, deciding, which task to do and then which task can be deleted, it becomes easier when you're clear on what's important to you. And so the Eisenhower matrix, it's not perfect by any means, but I've found it to be useful in the decision making process. It has helped to improve my productivity, and then eliminating those behaviors that take up mental energy. They really waste time, and they rarely move me towards the progress that I'm looking for, the not perfection, the progress of towards attaining my goals. So I hope that you'll find the Eisenhower matrix useful. And I hope that, when you're at a point where there are some gray areas or some unclear areas, that you would ask yourself these two questions. What am I working towards? And what are the core values that drive my life? And I see that Tiffany's asked the question, how often do you use this matrix? So for me, I create weekly lists, and then I go through and I adjust the list on a pretty consistent basis at the beginning of my day. So what you determine is going to be useful for you is according to what your needs are. Someone else may decide that they're going to create a list every day and, work through a fresh list with each new day. So Tiffany, you determine what's going to work best for you. And that's the beauty of work-life integration. My flow is not going to be your flow. And Lavita's flow is not going to be Reginald's flow. It's based upon what matters most to you. It's based upon reasonable expectations that you set for yourself. And based upon those items, it'll help you to determine how you want to incorporate this matrix into getting things done and creating more productivity in your life. So here are some additional tips for work-life integration. Focus on your values. So, what's really important to you. Make your own individual plan. It's based upon areas of development for you, where you want to excel in your family life, how you want to excel in your academic or education areas, how you want to excel with certain career goals or work status, how you want to excel personally. Maybe it's a matter of health or spiritual needs. So focus on your own values and your own priorities, and make a plan that's just for you. Set your limits and know the boundaries that you need to have in place for yourself. And so that leads to the next tip. Learn the power of no. So saying no will help you create those healthy boundaries. And I can tell you, for me, that has been really hard managing those boundaries, saying no, because we want to feel like we can do it all. I pride myself in being able to multitask, but how much of that is just really not important? It's how much of it is just wasting my time and allowing others to dictate the design of my quilt. I should be the designer of my quilt in order to have the best flow for work-life integration. And so learn the power of saying no. It will, again, help you to create healthy boundaries and promote a healthy work-life blend or integration, if you will, and it'll help you to prevent burnout and stress, which weigh heavily on our productivity and our professional lives, and also the health and well-being in our personal lives. The next one is get organized. So determining what plan you're going to set for yourself and organizing and executing in that vein. Find out what those time wasters are and eliminate those, or find out where there are open spaces for you to create or to incorporate some of those activities that, maybe you spend just 30 minutes doing mindless scrolling on YouTube versus hours and hours on end, just wasting time. Then avoid the trap of perfectionism. You do not have to be all things to all people. Everything does not have to be done with perfection. Life and work are about progress, not perfection. And so be true to yourself, be true to who you are, and establish realistic and manageable timelines for yourself, realistic, manageable, and smart goals for yourself. Avoid perfection and preconceived notions that you allow others to have for you, that dictate how you move forward in your life. It's about what matters to you and what's going to be the best flow in your life. Then the next tip would be to, get connected and leverage your the support systems that you have in place. Establish a network, or really maximize the network that you have. And that could be at home with, your family, your friends, your neighbors. How can you really foster a team environment based upon how you communicate and coordinate, and maybe delegate tasks that impact your day-to-day life? So really maximize your support system. And then at work or at school, who do you seek out for career guidance? Ask folks for trusted individuals for advice, or do you have a mentor that could be a part of that support system? Have you looked to specific individuals or resources that can help you with skill acquisition? Get connected and leverage or maximize your support system. And then lastly, the last tip that I have is to invest in yourself. Extremely, extremely important that we really take the time to invest in ourselves. And so self-care is a huge thing. Building healthy personal habits, physical, mental, spiritual, it all impacts our well-being holistically. And so exercising, investing in eating healthy, investing in good sleeping habits. And I, for one, don't always do a good job of that. And I can see where it spills into other areas of my life. But, really just investing in self-care, your mental health it does have a huge significance in how you flow through other areas of your life. So really take the time to invest in yourself. Maybe you enjoy reading, or maybe your hobby is cooking, or taking long walks. And this time of year is gorgeous. This is my favorite time of year. It's a good time for me to get out and take the time that I need to step away and unplug from certain things, and just feel the coolness of the fall air, and to watch the beauty of nature and the leaves changing. And again, whatever your thing is, let it be, and don't feel guilty about what you need to do to unplug and refocus in investing in yourselves. Be flexible. Things do change. But again, let go of guilt and be free to maneuver however you need to create the best integration process that you need to for your life. Investing in yourself is also looking at opportunities that will help you to grow, to help you move towards that purpose, that progress that we talked about, and moving towards what really matters most to you. And so, as you're navigating your personal and your professional aspects of your life, to get the blend that works for you, we want you to know that we are here for you. We offer career services support, and you can see that there are options for you to explore programs and classes for reskilling and upskilling in certain areas through workforce.waketech.edu. Or if you were thinking, hey, I just need some time to work on how to best market myself for the job market, spending time practicing on those interviewing skills, Career Services is here to help you with that, integrating that professional development, those career development aspects into how you navigate your personal priorities. And so visit us at careers.waketech.edu, where you can explore the services that we offer, the resources that are available on our website. And we are happy to meet with you on campus in person, or again, managing time effectively. Maybe you prefer to meet with us online, virtually, and we're open to that platform as well. So thank you for joining today's session. I hope that there were strategies that were given to you to help you to create a better work-life integration process for yourself. Remember, it is like designing a perfect quilt. You are the designer. You are the individual that masters and plans your destiny. Set your own expectations. Thank you again for joining to today's session, and I hope that you continue to enjoy the Continuing Success Conference. I'm going to stay on for just a few more minutes if there are any questions or anything you'd like to discuss.